Welcome to another edition of the Franchise Consultant Podcast. I'm so excited to be here with Sonie Skogerson from Budget Blinds. So great to see you today.
Thank you so much for having me on. Happy to be here.
So, Sonie, you have such an interesting story about franchising. Could you let our listeners know a little bit about your franchise journey?
Sure. About 7 years ago, my husband and I were looking to do something else. He'd been working in the corporate world. I have a fashion background and worked in New York City for about 10, 12 years. And then I basically started having kids and didn't go back to the fashion world because I was always on a plane traveling to Italy. As glamorous as it might seem, it's not great when you have little kids. So we were kind of looking, what's our next venture? What are we going to do? So my husband started talking to franchising consultants and thought this was a great avenue. So we started looking into different businesses. And when we got into this process, you could do this for a year, right? Like you could do it for forever. So we're like, we put actually a time limit on it. We're like, we're going to start, we're going to be very diligent, and we're going to give ourselves a 3-month cap on to make sure we do all the process. You're not, because you can't keep going on and on and on. You got to make a decision at some point, right? So we actually started looking about 3 different businesses and going through all the protocol and researching and talking to owners. And we basically ended up with a Budget Blinds franchise. And actually not one, we actually bought 2 Budget Blind franchises right off the bat. And that was, I'm going to say, about 7 years ago. So it was a great experience for us, tons of support. One of the things I think I loved about this experience the most was the discovery days, because you actually get to go meet the people, meet the team, see what's going on, and you get a real feel for if this is something you can see yourself doing or not. So we jumped in. Budget Blinds was a great choice for us. I loved it because I come from a fashion background. So right away, you can do all kinds of window treatments, so blinds and hard treatments, but what got me excited was the soft treatments. I have a designer background, so you can see even my little hot pink drapes here in the back. I like fashion and fun. So this was a great industry for me to transition into, having a sales background and a soft fashion background. So basically, it's about 7 years ago. A lot has changed since then, even in just the past couple months with what's been going on in our area. So we're about 10 miles outside of New York City. We have a nice little team. We have a couple installers. I have a couple salespeople. We have a little office, which is great. So we're not doing it out of our house. And basically we've had, probably one of our best years ever was last year in 2019. So, and it's a fun, it's busy, it's a great business. And then, basically with everything that happened with COVID-19, it came to a grinding halt in March. Nobody's ever experienced anything like this before. So we kind of had to reevaluate and figure out what are we going to do. Budget Blinds is such a personal experience. We basically go into the consumer's house. We do a one-to-one. We look at your windows. We give you a design. We measure. We bring in fabrics. We bring in, product. So not being able to go into people's houses anymore, this really stopped our business. Within the first week, though, I had a couple of clients call me and they're like, well, I just need a couple blinds for this window. Or I need a couple blinds for here. I have to get it done. Do you think you can help me? So I was like, well, I can't go into your house, but why don't you grab a measuring tape? I'll show you how to measure. We know which treatment you need to do. And that's kind of how we evolved into a virtual consultation. So we've been doing those for almost 9 weeks now. We are now into a point where we're actually able to go back into people's houses, but for a long time we weren't able to. So the virtual consult is, I tell everybody it's super easy. I said, I need 30 minutes of your time. You need to have a measuring tape or an iPhone or Zoom, and we can definitely handle your window treatments that way. So basically we were doing that. I can see your house, I can see your windows, I can design from there. And then if it's an easy measure, I can guide you on how to measure. If it's not, I'll still guide you. So then you can give me sizes, so then I can send you an estimate and we can figure out pricing. And then if it was a really complicated measure, I basically put you on a wait list until we were able to go into your house, until it's safe, right? So basically that lifted this past Monday, right? So again, it's been about 9 weeks. So we started doing a lot of measures this week. But also, even without us having to go into measure, a lot of the clients I've been dealing with were able to measure or were super handy. So we did a ton of orders that way. And then we would just basically, once the product came in, we would drop it at their house. And then some of them would even install themselves. So, you know, usually we do the install, but it was a super easy install, and everybody's at home these days. So you're looking at all these home projects you got to do. So if you're handy, I basically send a little YouTube video on here, how you can install your honeycombs or your wood blinds. And a lot of homeowners would do that. Not for everybody though, not gonna lie. So a lot of homeowners were like, no, I'm not handy, just hang on to my product. So we did that as well. So again, now that we've opened back up, we have this, a lot of backlog, but we're installing everybody's product in the next couple of weeks and just keep going. Also, I'm gonna say our phones have been ringing off the hook probably for the past 5 or 6 weeks, even though we've been in this about 9 weeks. I think, again, everybody's at home and they're looking around and they're like, oh, I need to replace that blind. I didn't do this. I've been meaning to do this, but I never have time. So now that everybody's home, they want to get everything done. So we've actually been doing a ton more appointments than we normally do because, again, I think we have this captive audience and everybody's at home wanting to do things. I'm the same way. I'm like, I need to get that room repainted. I need to get this redone because you're at home picking apart everything. Or I say, even your home office, we all spend so much time in our home offices now because you're not going to work anymore. You've transitioned one room in your house somewhere that you can spend time and work, right? So even that room, a lot of people are like, I have glare on my computer screen. I need to switch it out. Can you send something for me? And I'll install it myself. So we've been doing a lot of that. So did our business slow down a ton? Not really. We had about a week or two when we were figuring things out, but really it's still really busy, and it's just getting busier and busier every day right now. It's interesting.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's great. And tell me about the steps that the franchisor Budget Blinds is making to ensure your success in this time.
So Budget Blinds has been great. They offer a ton of support. So we work with a ton of coaches from the home office. They're always helping you, whether it's, you know, anything you need from like selling to numbers to this to that. So I think they've all kind of transitioned to how can we support you through this virtual consult as well, right? So they've come up with a 10-step plan. How do you do a virtual consultation? What are the things you need? So they've basically given the steps to almost like everybody, so we can all, if you want to do this, you can jump on and do these virtual consults. So the home office has been great in just helping. They're very supportive always. Something else we've actually been doing is I have a local group that we always meet like once a month for like a breakfast. There's about 10 franchises in the area. But we've evolved it now. We can't meet, so we actually do a Zoom call once a week on Thursdays, and it's actually about 50 of us now. So I have people in the tri-state area, I have people in Idaho, I have people in Canada, and we basically run a best practices. And in the beginning, it was a lot about virtual consults. How are we doing this? How are we gonna make it work? And just trying to teach each other, like what worked, what didn't work, what's the best way. So that was actually something that was really good. And then we always invite some of the coaches from the home office in on these calls. So then if they know something, they're going to let us know, like, this is working really well. Or, you know, we all basically team together to do certain things. Like we all ordered hand sanitizers as giveaways for our clients, right? Something that everybody needs right now. We even did face masks we've done as well. So, you know, we order them in abundance. You know, you're going to get a much better price if you're ordering like 1,500 together versus 25, right? So we all work together to do things like that as well. So
what's the advantage of being in a franchise system as opposed to just going out on your own and starting a business?
So many advantages. Well, number one, the support you get from the home office is phenomenal. Again, as I said, like the coaches there, they basically, the minute you buy a franchise, you get assigned a coach and they're with you. Say they're the onboarding coach. So you get a coach for about 3 months. So they can help you with anything from the setup of your, you know, your office, your van, your samples, how to sell, how to close. Like they have tons of webinars and trainings to help you with all of that. So the support is phenomenal. Whereas if you're doing that on your own, you're not getting any of that. You're just trying to stumble through, right? And basically, you know, they have, you know, tried methods they've done and they've worked with a ton of us. I mean, there's over 1,200 franchises in Budget Blinds in Canada, the US, and Mexico. So there's a lot of us that have been doing this a while. So they definitely can give you great advice and great support. And also just, I think being a brand and being so big, we get better value for everything. So then we have another team that works on, you know, producing our private label products. We get better value because it's not one certain person going to one vendor saying, hey, you know, what is my pricing? We're such a large group of us that we get special deals, we get exclusive fabrics, a lot of different things that you wouldn't get if you weren't part of a franchise. And I'm going back to the coach thing. I always tell this. I say, when you buy into a franchise, you're paying for a lot of things. And one of the things you are paying for is a coach. So you can use that coach for 3 months. You can use that coach for 7 years. So I've basically gone through 4 different coaches as my business has evolved. Some people continue to use them. Some people don't. But I was like, you know, this is part of your franchise fee you're paying. So why not utilize the coaches? And a lot of the coaches that have come in have been very successful Budget Blinds franchises that have sold their franchises and basically moved the home office, have swept in and grabbed them because they're like, who's better to coach you than somebody who's, you know, walked in your shoes, right? So there's a ton of support, you know, and just everything with being part of a franchise. And the other thing that I love is the support of all my local peers around me. So we all get together, we all work together. We have certain areas. So when you buy a Budget Blinds franchise, you get certain zip codes. So say I own 10 zip codes in Bergen County outside of New York, but I border, you know, Manhattan. So there's a couple franchises there. There's Westchester. There's a couple people all around me. So basically I can drive 30 minutes anywhere and probably bump into 10 other franchises, right? So we've all become very good friends and all work together on whether it's a marketing, a local effort, just trying to get through, you know, difficult times like this, best practices, we all get together. And it's a really nice support system to have, you know, because it's also like, you can have a good day, you can have a bad day. So maybe you're like, oh, my sales weren't where I thought they would be at this time, you know, this month. So then you call up somebody else next door and they're like, oh, same here, something's up, you know, and then a week later, everything changes and it's all good. So, but it's nice having that local support from the other people around you. And again, you're all on the same side. You're not competing against each other. So it's a really nice network. And on top of that, Budget Blinds offers, not Budget Blinds, the vendors we work with offer a lot of incentive trips, right? So this is something I didn't even realize when I bought the Budget Blinds franchise, but if you start selling and you hit certain goals, you actually win fabulous trips. So before this all started, I was in Jamaica. Last year, I think I did a Sorrento trip. We went to Prague. We've been like all over the place. Aruba. I had no idea about any of these trips, but you know, I usually, I know it's pretty fun. I didn't know I would travel owning a Budget Blinds franchise as much as I do. A lot of my friends always say to me, like, how come you guys are traveling again? Where are you going? How do you get all these exotic trips? I'm like, through Budget Blinds, you know? So everybody's like, I had no idea you could do that stuff. I'm like, neither did I when I bought the franchise. Well, what happens is you meet all these fantastic friends too. So all these other franchises. So basically we all travel together and try and make sure we get on the same trips because you have this, you know, Budget Blinds family now, which is like really, really nice. So yeah, so I was just in Jamaica in the beginning of March before all the craziness happened. And I was with like 3 or 4 other really good friends of ours that I never would have met except until Budget Blinds. So we've all become really good friends. We spent holidays together. Like, it's amazing. So something you never thought you would have got out of buying a franchise as well.
So you talked about a coach inside of the franchise itself. Could you talk a little bit about the advantage of using a franchise coach or consultant in finding a brand?
Say that again.
Could you talk about the advantage of using a franchise coach or consultant when you're looking at different franchise opportunities, the advantage of that as opposed to just finding one yourself out of the 4,000 brands that are out?
Oh my gosh, I think it's so smart to use a franchise consultant. Otherwise, number one, it's so overwhelming. You don't know where to start. And as you said, there's so many different businesses. How do you know what to get into, what not to, what makes sense? I think too, when you're working with a franchise cult, they really find out what are your needs. What do you want to do? Do you want to be traveling? Do you want to be a partner? Do you want to be a silent partner? What do you want out of this business? And then they can look at you and what you have, what your, you know, financial needs, everything, and then they can match you. And I remember when we were doing that, we did not want to travel too far. So we wanted find something in Bergen County. So it was less than like, you know, 5 to 10 mile radius. I was so used to traveling into New York City. So was my husband. So we're like, let's have something that's local. So we wouldn't have even known about half the businesses we had looked and researched if we hadn't worked with a franchise coach, for sure. So I think it's key on really narrowing down and finding what suits you best. And they can also give you the pros, the cons, what's going on. You know, they can say, okay, I placed this person a couple years ago in the same franchise, give them a ring too, you know? So there's definitely a ton of advantages to working with a franchise coach. And I tell that to a lot of people who are looking to get into businesses, for sure. And at the same time, it doesn't cost us anything to work with you guys, but it's like, it's a super smart thing to do. Why wouldn't you?
I so appreciate your time today, Sonie. If someone wants to get a hold of you, they're interested in blinds and they live in northern New Jersey, how do they get a hold of you?
They can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Budget Blinds NJ. And basically, if you just put in Budget Blinds and Google it, the website comes up, you put in your zip code, and you'll be directed to whoever owns that area. So basically, just Googling Budget Blinds and putting your zip code is usually the best way to do it.
I have one last question for you. You said that you had a very quick process with your husband, or a very determined process where you narrowed it down to 3 months, where you pick something that would be the right fit for both of you. What advice, if anything, do you have for people that are looking at different franchise businesses to figure out which one really is the right option for them?
I would definitely put a timeline on it as well, because I feel like if you don't, you can just, if there's no timeline on it, you don't have to make a decision. So you got to put a timeline on it. For me, I had to get as much information as you can, do the due diligence. And then when you're able to, I'd say like explore those franchises as much as possible. Like if you can go work with them. If it's, you know, a store, if it's a business like ours, go right along with an owner. See if you could actually, if you like that business and you could do it, live the day of it, right? I actually tell the home office, anytime you have somebody in our area who's looking to buy a Budget Blinds franchise, I invite them to come and spend a day with me and see the, you know, day in the life of a franchise owner. I think seeing it that way really, really helps versus just phone calls and seeing it on paper. So I think, you know, you've got to do your homework, you've got to do your research, and you've got to ask a lot of questions.
Well, this was great stuff, Sonie. I so much appreciate your time today, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too.